Pikmin! Just cute little guys, adorable little dudes. I love them, you love them, everybody loves them. But what are they? This is a surprisingly tough question. According to the Nintendo fandom wiki, they're half plant and half animal, but is that really a thing? Can something truly be half plant and half animal? Well, let's figure it out together on this episode of Video Game Botany. Let's first establish where Pikmin are. These cute little critters inhabit planet PNF 404. Now it is pretty safe to assume PNF 404 is Earth. There are traces of human activity, Earth plants and fruit and oxygen, so unless we've colonized a new planet, let's just go with it. So this is going to be using Earth standards, and we are also going to be using modern biology that is known to us to explain things. These little guys were discovered by Captain Olimar, a delivery driver from the planet Hakatate. He was the first to discover the Pikmin, so we will have to assume he is the expert in the field of Pikmin research. I am but a lowly internet content maker, so we will take his word as final. Now that we have that out of the way, what domain would they be in? I'm referring to taxonomic ranks, of course. Those things that our teachers try to make us memorize in 6th grade, but we just didn't care enough to. They're the things we use to name organisms as specifically as possible. For a little refresher, it goes domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. I didn't even look this up, I swear. I used King Philip Came Over for Good Spaghetti to remember it. In order to answer the domain question, we're gonna have to go tiny. No. Tinier. There we go, cells. Whether they be imperfect or perfect, we got them, we need them, we love them. Cells are the things that make up, well, everything. They make up all living things. If it lives, it's got at least one cell. So what are cells exactly? Well, let's see one. Cells are like tiny sacs filled with goo called cytoplasm. With cellular biology, we're able to explain where Pikmin go, at least at first. Let's figure out where they go taxonomically, shall we? First, are they single-celled or multicellular? Believe it or not, there are some single-celled organisms we don't need a microscope to see. An example of this would be some amoeba species. Well, we can tell they are multicellular by one major thing. They have specialized organs. Eyes. They have eyes. Any multicellular organism has cells with specific duties. For instance, your kidneys are made up of different cells than your skin, which are different than your eyeballs. These little guys have eyeballs, therefore they have specialized cells, plural. This actually narrows it down quite a bit. See, there are a bunch of different domains with only single-celled organisms. Those are all out. Domain, Eukarya. Okay, so now we can try to figure out some traits that all life has, all Pikmin have, and some Pikmin have. This should allow us to narrow down our search significantly. We're also going to make the assumption that these little guys have evolved as animals or plants would have. This means they either have plant cells or animal cells, but not both, because animal and plant cells have different organelles within them. So what properties do all living things have? They have a complex cell or multiple complex cells, they respond to stimuli, they reproduce, they grow and develop, they respire or breathe in some way, they metabolize or go through chemical reactions for energy, and they regulate their internal environment. So what ways can we prove that Pikmin are alive? Do they respond to stimuli? Of course they do, we see this a lot. They respond to Olimar's whistle, and they also respond to predators. Do they reproduce? Yep, again. They reproduce through something called an onion, as well as when many Pikmin are killed in one area, they can create more. They grow and develop? Well, throughout the Pikmin life cycle, we see that they start as tiny little seeds, then they grow leaves, to flower buds, to flowers. Respiration? Yeah, we can prove that they breathe really easy, or that they have some sort of primitive respiratory system by the fact that they can drown. Also, blue Pikmin have gills, showing that they have to breathe somehow. This could also be done through the leaf or flower structure as speculated in the Wikipedia, but we will get into more detail on how this is done later. Metabolization? Yeah, they metabolize. We see them absorb nectar and grow flowers, as well as the fact that if they're plants, then those leaves would be used for photosynthesis. But do they regulate their internal environment? Well, this one's a little bit harder to prove, but I think we can with temperature. We see Pikmin in all sorts of environments, from nice springs to frozen tundras. If they couldn't regulate, then surely they would be frozen. Okay, so they're alive. Perfect. Now we can try to specialize them. What makes a Pikmin a Pikmin? Well, for starters, bioluminescence. We see them glow when they're idle. They're also mobile and able to navigate their environment freely. They're vocal, able to make noises. They have leaves, buds, or flowers, and they come from onions. So, what makes each Pikmin unique? Well, red Pikmin are fire resistant and tough, yellow Pikmin can withstand electricity and are slightly lighter, blue Pikmin have gills, can swim, and breathe underwater, purple Pikmin are larger and heavier, white Pikmin are poisonous, rock Pikmin are, well, they look like rocks with a leaf on their head, winged Pikmin can fly, ice Pikmin are the same as rock Pikmin but with ice and can freeze water, and glow Pikmin, well, they glow and float. I will also be including Bulbmin, which are baby bulborbs parasitized by Pikmin, as well as mushroom Pikmin. Great, we've established the biology of Pikmin. Time to figure out what the heck these little dudes are now. So, plants, animals, or something else entirely? Let's do plants first. They're the ones most closely associated with Pikmin, what with the little leaves and such. Let's start with photosynthesis. Is it possible that this is how Pikmin eat? Absolutely, it's possible. Photosynthesis is the process of taking sunlight and using that energy to convert carbon and water into sugars to eat and store. Bingo, this is our food source. Now, for nectar absorbing, there are plants that eat more than just sunlight and carbon. Meet my little buddy Nepenthes, the pitcher plant. This little guy has the ability to catch insects in its trap. Then it secretes all sorts of fluids and enzymes into the trap which melt the bug. It reabsorbs the goo and nutrients from it, and bam, instant fertilizer. Now, let's get to everyone's favorite or least favorite subject, reproduction. Everyone knows how flowers reproduce, the magic of pollination. When pollen from a male part of the flower, or stamen, reaches the female part of the flower, or pistil, then the flower is able to grow a seed. Now, this is for just one type of plant, the angiosperms. Gymnosperms, such as evergreens and ginkgos, reproduce in a similar way but without flowers. But there are other ways plants can reproduce, such as spores like ferns and mosses. But we see Pikmin specifically have flowers, therefore they are angiosperms. So let's do some hypotheses. What if the onion is in fact a mature Pikmin? Now hear me out and put on a tinfoil hat if you need to. According to the Wikipedia, they are in fact alive. So if a Pikmin is somehow a highly evolved mobile seedling, then that would make the onion the final form of its life cycle. Let's establish a life cycle for them real quick. Pikmin is born from onion, Pikmin brings nutrients back to onion to sustain it and make more Pikmin, and then we don't know what happens next because nobody has stayed on the planet long enough to figure it out. So sexual reproduction is hard. What about asexual? Well, that is much easier to explain. We see Pikmin appearing in places where many Pikmin have died. Well, this is going to be kind of gross, but if parts of the Pikmin are falling off and onto the soil, they could take root and grow a whole new Pikmin. Here's some cuttings I have reading right now. These were cut from my own plants, and you can see the roots forming very quickly. It would make sense that the Pikmin would be able to reproduce in a similar manner. Now, we see Pikmin moving throughout the game, and there are no known walking plants. But all plants do move. They can adjust the angle of their leaves to catch the most sunlight. A more extreme example of responding to stimuli and moving would be this Mimosa pudica, or sensitive plant. Watch what happens when you touch one of the leaves. You see an instant reaction. Another example would be Dionea muscipula, or the Venus flytrap. They respond to insects stimulating special hairs on the inside of their traps. Alright, so how would they breathe? Well, for plants, they have this special single-cell-sized opening that they can control on their leaves called stomata. These are able to release and bring gases into the plant. If Pikmin are plants, then it stands to reason that they would have stomata to breathe from, or the gill structure seen on blue Pikmin to aid in underwater respiration. Okay, so they're able to survive in multiple different temperatures. They're seen in snow and in hot springs with no problem. Well, plants are able to adjust their internal environment as well. They can survive some pretty extreme temperatures depending on species, and can control things such as water balance, oxygen balance, and carbon dioxide balance. If Pikmin are plants, then they would be able to do the same thing. But we hear Pikmin talking. Can plants do that? Oh, they can. Plants emit ultrasonic sounds that are too high-pitched for us to hear, but multiple studies have recorded them and brought them down to a pitch we can hear. It kinda sounds like popping. They usually do this when they're stressed, but they can do it whenever they feel like it. Surely they can't see, right? We see Pikmin adapting to their surroundings by sight. This is proven by the fact that an idle Pikmin will begin to attack anything that comes near it. Sure, it could be chemical signals, but we see an eye structure. It's right there. So plants don't have eyes. But there are theories that support some sort of sight. I'm referring to one specific study done by Jacob White and Felipe Yamashita. Here it goes. There's a plant called Bacilla trifoliolata and engages in something called mimetic polymorphism. This means that the plant will quite literally change its leaf shape depending on the foliage around it. They theorize it is done through chemical signals, DNA passing, hormones, and many, many other things. However, there's a big one that is often left out: sight. In this study, White and Yamashita placed a plastic plant over B. trifoliolata. You're not gonna believe this, but BT actually mimicked the fake plant. No chemicals, hormones, or DNA required. So yeah, there's still plenty to be studied in this field, and it's too early to tell, but it's a great step into understanding if plants truly have vision or not. Now I think our planty journey is coming to an end though. Pikmin are known to be bioluminescent, and unfortunately there are no bioluminescent plants. In labs, scientists have been able to combine bioluminescent bacteria and fungi with plants to make it look like they're glowing. I even owned one at one point. It shipped with a virus though, so unfortunately he has since passed. May you rest in peace, Charles. So maybe if they have a symbiotic relationship it would be possible, but if they're just normal plants, then no. From there, a lot of the phenomenon that individual Pikmin can do can't be explained either. The fire ability of reds, the electrical abilities of yellow, and the glowing of the glow Pikmin are all disqualifiers. And if you really want to get deep into it, plants can't parasitize animals, only other plants. So Bulbmin are proof alone that Pikmin are not a plant. Okay, so we got plants out of the way, now what about animals? This one makes the most sense, right? They're able to move and make sounds just like animals can. But let's see all the evidence. First off, how are they getting nutrients? Well, animals are heterotrophs, meaning they require food from an outside source. We see Pikmin readily absorbing nectar, so there we go, instant food. But there is another possibility here. Elysia timida is a sea slug that has the amazing ability to photosynthesize. When E. timida eats algae, it is able to absorb the chloroplasts, the photosynthesize bits, and keep them active while they're in their digestive system. So if the Pikmin are somehow gaining chloroplasts from an outside source, it is possible. Unlikely, but possible. We see Pikmin growing and changing over time with the leaf to flower transition. Now, how about the whole reproduction thing? Well, let's put our tinfoil hats on once again and make some hypotheses. What if the onion is the adult form of the Pikmin, like we were guessing with the plant, but it operates more like a coral? Corals go through a movement stage called a planula when they're babies. What if the onion was an adult Pikmin and the Pikmin are their version of a planula? Okay, fair enough, but what about the Pikmin that die on the field? Well, the answer to that is starfish. They have amazing regenerative abilities. If a Pikmin is damaged on the field, given enough time, it will regrow itself, or even a whole new Pikmin. Reacting to environment? Well, Pikmin are a prey species and we see them afraid of predators. Breathing? Well, if they can drown, it stands to reason that they can breathe. I imagine it works like a worm in that they breathe through their skin, and we see blue Pikmin specifically have gills. Reds have a nose-like structure, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's used for breathing. After all, there aren't any nostrils. Now for the secondary traits. Bioluminescence. Is it possible? Absolutely, just look at fireflies or anything in the deep sea as an example, so that's an easy check. Mobile and vocal are easy to explain too, but what about their leaves, buds, and flowers? Mimicry is the answer here. Just like katydids, mantises, and even some lizards, they have evolved to have a flower stalk to look like their environment. Now let's get to the Pikmin species-specific traits. Let's start with the reds. Okay, I'm at a loss. Reds are fireproof, and there are no records of fireproof animals. Many of the animals you see surviving wildfires, such as echidnas, survive by avoiding the fire altogether. They can die from the heat, but most die from asphyxiation before that would even happen. So red Pikmin at least cannot be animals. They stand in flames with no side effects, so nope, that is our first no on animals. I know you want to say tardigrades could survive it, but no, not even they could. They can survive up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, but fire burns around 1000 degrees Fahrenheit. But for fun, let's try a few more. Yellows, they can withstand electricity, right? Well, electric eels exist, so yeah, it's possible. Blue Pikmin are obviously amphibious due to their gills and lungs. Axolotls have both, so yeah, again, it's possible. Purples, they're just bigger. So yeah, possible. White Pikmin are poisonous and resistant to poison. I think their best comparison would be a poison dart frog. Eats poisonous things and gains that poisonous ability. Bulbamin. There are parasitic animals, sure, but... hold on. Wasps! There are some species of wasps that can parasitize other insects. This is usually for reproductive means though, but they can take control of them. Okay, rock Pikmin. I think they're like a hermit crab that has a rock for a shell. Wing Pikmin. Well, plenty of animals have wings, so there we go. Ice Pikmin. As far as I know, there are no known animals that can change the temperature of water, besides heating it up due to being warm-blooded, so this one is another no. Finally, Glow Pikmin. They are essentially fireflies, right? We're just gonna ignore the whole teleportation thing because laws of matter and such. Well. Unfortunately, plants are not the solution, and neither are animals. Even if they were to combine into a plant-animal hybrid like most people hypothesize, they just don't add up. Our main concern is fireproof. That is something that neither of these have. Come on, there has to be something. Please, Planet PNF 404, you've got to have something they can be. Okay, just for fun, let's try to classify them as, I don't know, a fungus. They do have clear connections to plants and more so animals, so let's just see how this works. First off, they absorb their food. They're heterotrophs like animals, so they gain their nutrients from an outside source, like, for example, nectar maybe? Not only this, but we see Pikmin being made after the onion absorbs dead animal and plant matter. What are fungi known as? The decomposers. We definitely see Pikmin and fungi grow. What about reproduction, the big one? Well, let's do some hypothesizing once again. What if the true fungus, or the mycelium, is underground and the onion was a mushroom? Mushrooms are, after all, the fungi's mode of reproduction. So let's make a life cycle. Mycelium, the real body of the fungus, reaches maturity, sprouts an onion or mushroom. Then, once the onion drops Pikmin, or spores, the spores bring nutrients back to the site of the mushroom, which then brings the nutrients to the mycelium, which in turn makes more spores, more onions, etc. With enough time, the Pikmin will find their own spots once they reach a certain level of maturity and start their own mycelium. What about dead Pikmin creating more Pikmin? Well, if they are spores, then when they land on the ground, they can spread into the soil and start another mycelium, which in turn can sprout more Pikmin. Do they breathe? Yeah, fungi, like animals, absorb oxygen and expel carbon dioxide. They do this inside of the soil with hair-like structures called hyphae. We know that Pikmin can see as established in the plant section, so what about a fungus? Well, we do know that fungi can sense light, which is honestly the first step to sight. So yeah, in a sense, they have a very primitive visual structure. I guess the plants would have that too, but I just wanted to talk about B. trifoliolata. Sorry for the change in audio, I'm actually recording this section on a different microphone, so please bear with me. Now for the secondary traits. Bioluminescence? Well, let me introduce you to Omphalodus alarius, or more commonly known as the jack-o'-lantern mushroom. It's very poisonous, but very glowy. There are actually a bunch of different bioluminescent fungi, so this is an easy check. Now another one that's hard to explain is vocalization. How do fungi communicate? Well, very similarly to plants, through chemical and electrical signals. You may have seen on the interwebs people hooking electrodes up to mushrooms and listening to the sounds that they make through the electricity flowing through them. Well, this might be a stretch, but if the electrical signals were magnified in some way, then it stands to reason that they would make noise. Okay, final test for secondary traits. Leaves, buds, and flowers. Well, plants, animals, and fungi all have this funny habit of looking like each other. Meet Fusarium xyrophyllum. This little guy likes to send out something called a pseudoflower, or false flower. These pseudoflowers evolved to attract insects to spread their spores. Pikmin very well could have done the same. Okay, final stretch. We have made it further than we did with the plants. Let's finally test the individual Pikmin abilities. Red Pikmin being fireproof? Yes, they can absolutely be a fungi. The Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, or RMIT, has been doing extensive research on flame-resistant mycelium. They have even found ways to grow into uniform sheets and believe this could be a new step in flame resistance. Okay, but what about yellows? Mushrooms and electricity? Come on. Oh wait, they totally love electricity. According to research done by Iwate University, lightning strikes can actually promote the growth of shiitake mushrooms, so yeah, they're pretty fond of it. Blues, the little water boys. Do mushrooms like water? Yeah. There's a species of mushroom called Cythyrella aquatica, which is a fungus from Oregon, USA that was first described in 2010. It is the only basidiomycete, the kind of fungus that makes mushrooms, that grows underwater. What's next? Purples? Yeah, they're just bigger and heavier. Next, white? Poison? Yeah, lots of mushrooms are poisonous. Please don't eat without proper precautions. Bulbamin? Well, I think we all know what cordyceps are after The Last of Us. Rock Pikmin, oh rock Pikmin, you strange little guy. There are plenty of hard mushrooms out there like the Scleroderma species, but Wikipedia specifically states that they are actually a parasite for rocks. The Pikmin itself uses the rock as a shell and puts its tiny little arms and legs through it to move. Well, do mushrooms like rocks? Lichens! Oh boy, lichens! These are cool little fungi that have grown a special relationship with a particular algae, or more specifically, cyanobacteria. They have a very lovely symbiotic relationship, and yeah, they grow on rocks a lot. So, wing Pikmin. Well, if they really are spores, then most spores actually move through the air. If the wing Pikmin are lighter than normal Pikmin, which they are according to the Wikipedia, then it makes sense that they could glide above the others and have evolved a wing-like structure for steering. Ice Pikmin. The same lichen principle applies to them too. They can most definitely survive on ice, and they do so quite often in cold climates. But ice Pikmin can also freeze water. This is gonna blow your mind, but I actually have an explanation for this one. There's a species of fungus called Fusarium acuminatum, which is able to perform ice nucleation. This basically means that it is able to rearrange water molecules and freeze them. Oh, and guess what else can do this? Yeah, that's right. Lichens. The thing we're saying is actually in the ice. What's left? Glow Pikmin? Yeah, they float and glow. Easy. We've already explained those. And again, we're ignoring the teleportation because matter. Just for fun, one final test though. The puffstool Pikmin. These are seen when you expose the Pikmin to a puffstool spore cloud. Can fungi parasitize other fungi? Well, Trichoderma species do this very often, and they're actually very destructive. Well, there you have it. Pikmin aren't plants or animals. They are a highly evolved fungus. Take that, internet! This is the most likely explanation as to how they evolved. The onion is a mushroom, the mycelium is underground, and the Pikmin are spores. Now, if you will excuse me, I must return to the cave in which I dwell. If you have any more insights on Pikmin biology or have a video game recommendation, please leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, and I will see you next time for more video game botany, zoology, mycology, video game biology.